a powerful question that often gets buried beneath ambition, pressure, and noise. Why do you want wealth? Not what you want, not how to get it, but why. Why do you wake up early, work late, read the books, attend the seminars, listen to the podcasts? Why are you chasing that number in your bank account or that title on your business card? Too often, we skip this question. We skip it because it's hard, because it makes us pause, because it forces us to admit that maybe, just maybe, we've been running hard in a direction we've never stopped to question. And yet, without a clear why, even our best habits won't get us where we truly want to go. You can be disciplined, driven, even successful in the eyes of others. But without purpose, you risk building a life that looks good and feels empty. Wealth, in its most enduring form, begins with intention. It's not about accumulation. It's about meaning. It's about clarity. The world tells us to chase more money, more followers, more attention. But clarity doesn't come from more. It comes from knowing what matters most. Think about it. Two people can follow the exact same habits. They wake up at 5 a.m., they journal, they invest wisely, they network strategically, but only one of them wakes up inspired. Only one of them finds joy in the journey. The difference isn't the routine, it's the reason behind it. The reason why we pursue anything colors the experience of everything. If your reason is fear of being broke, of being invisible, of being forgotten, then even your wins will feel hollow. But if your reason is rooted in a vision, in service, in legacy, then even your struggles will feel worthwhile. The truth is, many of us were taught to want wealth without being taught what wealth really means. We confuse luxury with freedom, fame with influence, and attention with love. But those are symptoms. Wealth, in the truest sense, lasting wealth, isn't just financial. It's emotional, relational, spiritual. It's waking up with peace, not pressure. It's having the power to give, to choose, to walk away, to say yes because you want to, not because you have to, on that kind of wealth. It only starts when you start with why. There's a reason people who have it all sometimes walk away. You hear stories of entrepreneurs who build million-dollar businesses only to sell them and start something totally different. Often simpler, often more meaningful. They didn't fail, they just realized that they climbed the wrong mountain. And no matter how high the summit, if the mountain doesn't matter to you, the view won't satisfy you. So studying with your why isn't a soft skill. It's a survival skill. It keeps you grounded when the world gets loud. It keeps you centered when comparison creeps in. Because when you know your why, you stop being distracted by everyone else's version of success. It also makes your habits stick. People think discipline is about willpower. It's not. It's about clarity. When you know exactly why you're doing something, your motivation becomes intrinsic. You don't need hype. You don't need external validation. You have a direction. You have a compass. And that compass matters most when things get hard, because they will. There will be seasons where the results don't match the effort, where you're planting seeds and nothing seems to grow, where you wonder if it's even worth it. And in those moments, the only thing that will keep you going is a reason deeper than profit, deeper than status. That's why people who are truly fulfilled often talk less about what they do and more about what they believe. They lead with purpose, not tactics. They don't just share strategies, they share stories. Because when you're connected to something bigger than yourself, your work becomes a mission. Your habits become sacred, your journey becomes sustainable. The irony is, when you start with your why, the money often comes faster. Not because you're chasing it harder, but because you're attracting the right opportunities, the ones that align with who you are. People sense authenticity. People follow conviction. People support those who are clear and consistent about what they believe. This is where fulfillment enters the equation. Wealth without purpose breeds restlessness. But when your wealth is rooted in your why, every dollar feels like a seed. You spend with alignment, you invest with intention, you give with joy. So ask yourself, what does wealth mean to you? Not to your parents, not to your mentors, not to your Instagram feed. You. Does it mean freedom? Then ask, freedom to do what? With whom? For what cause? Does it mean legacy? Then ask, what are you building? For who? Why will it matter when you're gone? Does it mean peace? Then ask, what are you willing to let go of in order to experience that peace? This isn't a one-time exercise. It's a habit, a power habit, a practice of returning again and again to the core reason behind your effort. Because clarity fades, purpose drifts, and if you don't revisit your why regularly, it's easy to get off course, even with the best of intentions. The truth is, we don't need more productivity hacks. We don't need longer to-do lists or tighter schedules. We need more meaning. We need more leaders, creators, entrepreneurs, and dreamers who live from the inside out, who build habits not just for success, but for significance. So before you optimize your calendar, ask yourself, why am I doing any of this? Before you chase another milestone, ask, what do I want this to mean? Before you try to get rich, ask, what does rich mean to me? Really? Because if you start there with honesty and courage, wealth is never the destination. It's what shows up along the way when you've committed to something far greater than the pursuit of money. And yet so many people start by making wealth the goal. They tell themselves, if I just hit that number, then I'll be free. If I just buy that house, then I'll feel successful. If I just drive that car, then I'll finally be respected. But wealth, when pursued in isolation, doesn't fulfill the promises it makes. It's the mirage that keeps moving as you chase it. The irony is that the people who build lasting wealth, the kind that creates freedom, choice, and meaning, aren't usually chasing it directly. They're focused on something else entirely: contribution, value, impact. They understand that money is a reward, not a purpose. It's the applause for work well done. And like applause, it's most satisfying when you're not performing for it, but because you believe in what you're doing. When you make wealth the outcome rather than the mission, something shifts. You stop manipulating the system to win faster, and instead you master the system to serve better. You realize that the best businesses, careers, and lives aren't built by asking, how can I make more, but by asking, how can I help more? Because the truth is simple. Money flows to solutions. The more value you create, the more wealth you attract. It's not about rejecting wealth, it's about redefining it. If money becomes the measure of your life, you'll constantly be measuring. But if money becomes a tool to expand your impact, then every dollar has direction. Every cent has a story. Think about the people you admire most. The ones whose success feels solid, whose presence feels magnetic. Chances are they didn't start with a spreadsheet. They started with a problem they wanted to solve, a person they wanted to serve, a message they wanted to spread. Their wealth was a result of deep alignment between what they cared about and what the world needed. That's not an accident. That's a philosophy. See, when you chase money, you'll compromise, you'll cut corners, you'll settle for short-term wins. But when you chase meaning, you play the long game. You build trust, you build systems, you build reputation, and eventually you build wealth, not because you hunted it, but because you became the kind of person and brand that attracts it. There's a story of a man who spent years building a company that changed his industry. When asked how he became so successful, he simply said, I stopped trying to get rich. I started trying to be useful. That statement is more than humility, it's wisdom. Because usefulness compounds. The habit of being genuinely valuable, of solving real problems, of serving with integrity, builds relationships that pay dividends long after the initial transaction. But the world doesn't always teach that. The world teaches speed, virality, hustle, quick flips and faster exits. And sure, there are ways to game the system, but games don't build legacy. They don't build fulfillment, and they certainly don't build the kind of wealth that matters decades from now. We have to shift the focus from what we get to what we give, from how much we earn to how deeply we serve. Because when you're committed to giving your best to your clients, your team, your craft, the return always comes. Sometimes in money, sometimes in opportunity, sometimes in peace, but it always comes. There's something powerful about being the kind of person who wakes up not to chase dollars, but to solve problems, to improve lives, to build something worth believing in. That's what turns habits into a mission. That's what transforms routine into legacy. And yes, it's slower at first. It takes more effort. It demands consistency. But over time, it builds something money alone never could. Trust. And trust in any economy is the most valuable asset you'll ever own. So how do you build this kind of wealth? The kind that lasts. You stop asking, what's in it for me? And start asking, how can I make this better for someone else? You don't obsess over the scoreboard. You obsess over the game. You fall in love with the craft. You develop the habit of excellence. You serve people so well they feel guilty not paying you more. This mindset doesn't just change how you earn, it changes how you live. It affects how you show up in your relationships, how you raise your kids, how you handle challenges, because you're no longer driven by scarcity, you're driven by abundance. By the belief that the more value you create, the more impact you leave behind, the more the world will respond in kind. Fulfillment doesn't come from the number in your account. It comes from knowing that number means something, that it was earned honestly, with integrity, with intention, that it represents lives touched, problems solved, moments improved. You may not be able to control the market. You may not be able to predict every outcome, but you can control what you bring to the table, your habits, your focus, your values. And when those are in place, wealth becomes inevitable. Not immediate, but inevitable. So don't make wealth your God. Don't make it your obsession. Make it your byproduct. Build a life so rich in purpose that money becomes a natural outcome of who you are and how you operate. When your habits are rooted in contribution, when your daily actions are aligned with a deeper cause, the results will follow, the respect will follow, the wealth will follow. But more importantly, you'll follow through, not because you have to, but because you want to, because you're not chasing money. You're building meaning. And meaning never goes out of style. We live in a world that celebrates intensity. The overnight success, the big launch, the viral post. We applaud the person who loses 30 pounds in 30 days or builds a six-figure business in 6 months. We gravitate toward dramatic transformation because it feels exciting, it feels immediate. But the truth is, the people who achieve lasting wealth and fulfillment aren't fueled by intensity. They're anchored in consistency. Not what you do once that changes your life. It's what you do over and over again. We don't become wealthy because of one brilliant decision. We become wealthy because of 1,000 small ones. Saving when it would have been easier to spend. Investing when it would have been safer to wait. Showing up even when no one's watching. The people who make it aren't the ones who sprint the hardest. They're the ones who keep walking when the crowd has gone home. Intensity is exciting, but consistency is dependable. And that's where the magic lives. In the boring, repeated, invisible work that compounds over time. It's easy to admire someone's highlight reel, but behind every highlight is a habit. Often unglamorous, often unnoticed, that made it possible. Success leaves clues, but they're subtle. The early morning journaling, the 15-minute check-ins, the Sunday evening planning session, the intentional 5-minute pause before reacting in anger. These tiny behaviors, repeated daily, shape character. They shape identity. They shape outcomes. And yet, because they don't create instant results, they're often overlooked. There's something deeply human about wanting to feel momentum. We crave forward movement. We want to know our actions are working. But consistency asks you to believe before you see the results. It asks for faith. It asks for patience. And most people give up in that gap between action and outcome because they mistake silence for failure. But growth is silent. Progress is slow. You don't feel yourself getting stronger while you're lifting the weight. You feel it later. You don't see the investment growing day by day. It looks almost still, but over time it multiplies. That's the essence of consistency. It hides its rewards until you've earned them. Yeah. We've been conditioned to believe that hard work must be dramatic to be effective. But the truth is, lasting change is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It accumulates. And the ones who win are the ones who keep showing up even when it feels like nothing is happening. Consistency isn't sexy. It doesn't get applause. No one claps when you make your 200th cold call. No one celebrates when you choose a salad over fast food for the 11th day in a row. No one's cheering when you turn off Netflix to read 5 pages of a book. But these are the moments that define the future, because they shape who you are becoming. You can't cheat consistency. You can't fake it. You either build the habit or you don't. And that's what makes it powerful. It's honest. It exposes what you're really committed to. Not what you say you want, but what you're willing to show up for day after day, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Anyone can be intense for a season. But the people who leave a legacy, they play the long game. They know that true wealth isn't built in a month. It's built in decades. They know that fulfillment isn't found in big gestures, but in a life lived in alignment over time. If intensity is about moments, consistency is about rhythm. It's the steady beat that guides your progress forward. It's what keeps you grounded when life gets chaotic. It's what keeps you moving when motivation fades, because motivation is fleeting. It's loud one day and silent the next. But consistency doesn't wait to be inspired. It acts because it's part of who you are. Think about any habit that's changed your life. Did it feel revolutionary on day one? Probably not. It felt small. It felt ordinary. But something inside you said, keep going, and so you did. Not perfectly, but persistently. And over time, those little steps became your path. And this is the paradox of high achievers. They often do very simple things, but they do them relentlessly. They don't seek perfection, they seek progress. And they understand that missing one day doesn't mean you failed, it means you're human. But missing many days, that's how habits die. So they course correct quickly, they forgive themselves fast, and they return to the rhythm. It's not about willpower, it's about systems. It's about designing your life in a way that supports who you want to become. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. That's why consistent people protect their routines. They know that their future is being written by what they do today. Not what they plan to do, not what they hope to do, what they actually do. And here's the best part. Consistency compounds. The results aren't just additive, they're exponential. One tiny decision to improve your mindset today might lead to a breakthrough conversation 6 months from now. One habit of saving a few dollars every week might become the seed of financial freedom 5 years down the line. It all stacks. But only if you keep going. So ask yourself, what are you doing today that your future self will thank you for? What habits are you nurturing, not because they feel urgent, but because they feel right? What part of your life needs less intensity and more intention? The truth is, no one remembers the one day you went all in, but they do notice the person who keeps showing up. The parent who keeps listening, the partner who keeps being present, the leader who keeps telling the truth, the entrepreneur who keeps solving problems with care and consistency. That's where trust is built. That's where wealth is grown. That's where fulfillment lives. Your legacy won't be made by the biggest thing you ever did. It will be made by the small things you chose to do over and over again. Consistency may not look like much in the moment, but it's the strongest foundation you'll ever build. There's a truth most people only learn when it's too late. Wealth, real wealth, is relational. It's not just about money in the bank. It's about people in your corner. It's about the conversations that stretch you, the support that steadies you, and the trust that opens doors no strategy ever could. The most valuable currency in the world isn't cash. It's connection. And the greatest mistake we make is trying to build those connections only when we're desperate for them. You see, relationships aren't emergency tools. They're long-term investments. They're not things you scramble to assemble when things fall apart. They're the roots you nurture while things are still calm. Because when the storm hits, and it will, it's too late to start planting. You lean on what you've already sown. And what you've sown will depend on how you've shown up again and again for the people around you, and you didn't need anything in return. Most people treat networking like a transaction. They attend events, hand out cards, follow up with, "Let me know how I can help," when they're secretly hoping for the opposite. But the people who build powerful, lasting networks, they don't think transactionally. They think relationally. They give without keeping score. They show up before they're needed. They listen when no one else is listening. And they understand that real relationships are built on depth, not convenience. You don't wait until you're out of a job to start reaching out to mentors. You don't wait until you're launching a business to start forming partnerships. You don't wait until your world is falling apart to start calling your friends. You build those bridges now, quietly, consistently, because when you do, something incredible happens. Trust begins to grow, and trust is everything. Trust isn't built by being interesting. It's built by being interested. By asking the second question, by remembering their daughter's name, by showing up when there's no spotlight, no press, no opportunity. Trust is built in the small, invisible moments when people realize you're not there for what they can give you. You're there for who they are. We think fulfillment comes from achievements. But ask anyone who's reached the top of their industry and they'll tell you the real fulfillment comes from the people you shared the journey with, the phone calls at midnight, the encouragement before the big leap, the friend who reminded you who you were when you forgot. Relationships aren't just nice, they're necessary. They're the ecosystem in which all growth takes place. The challenge is, most of us are so busy building our empires that we forget to build the table. We forget that no amount of success matters if we have no one to share it with. We forget that no amount of achievement can replace the power of a single person believing in you, fully, unconditionally, and consistently. And that kind of belief, it's rare, but it's also earned. You earn it by investing, by being the one who sends the text first, by celebrating others without envy, by giving your time when it's inconvenient. You earn it by being the kind of person people trust in the quiet moments, when there's no stage, when there's no upside, when it's just two people doing life together. The most successful people, financially, emotionally, spiritually, don't rise alone. They rise with others. They collaborate, they counsel, they stay connected. They realize that no one is self-made, because no one grows in isolation. Every great breakthrough can be traced back to a conversation, a connection, a relationship that sparked something new. But here's the part no one talks about. Relationships take work, real work. It's not just about sending a birthday message or liking a post on social media. It's about presence. It's about attention. It's about staying when things get messy, We've become so accustomed to speed and convenience that we forget relationships aren't fast food, they're home-cooked meals. They take time. They take care. They take intentionality. And just like money, relationships compound. The more you invest, the greater the return. Not in some manipulative, calculated way, but in the most human way possible. The more you love, the more you're loved. The more you support, the more supported you become. The more you offer value without expectation, the more valuable you become. It's easy to underestimate this, especially in a world that glorifies independence and self-sufficiency. But wealth built alone is fragile. One disruption, one failure, one loss, and if you have no community, you have no cushion. But wealth built within relationships, that's anti-fragile. Because even when the money disappears, the support doesn't. The wisdom doesn't. The collaboration doesn't. And here's what's really powerful. Relationships outlast results. Your biggest wins will come and go, markets shift, industries change, opportunities fade, but the impact you have on people, who am I learning from? Not because I need something, but because I respect their journey. Who do I call, not to pitch, but to check in? Who would show up for me, not out of obligation, but out of loyalty? And that's your true net worth. And if the answer feels unclear, don't wait. Don't wait until the crisis comes to wish you'd built the relationship. Don't wait until the opportunity lands to realize you never nurtured the connection. Start now, today. One message, one coffee, one act of generosity. Because wealth isn't measured by what you can withdraw, it's measured by what you can lean on. And in the moments that matter most, it won't be the number in your account that saves you. It'll be the names in your phone. Those people start with the question, how? How do I grow my business? How do I make more money? How do I get ahead? But that's the wrong starting point. The most powerful individuals and the most successful organizations don't begin with the how. They begin with the why. Without purpose, even the best strategies collapse under the weight of confusion. We live in a world obsessed with tactics. Scroll through your feed and you'll find 100 ways to get rich, grow fast, or hack your way to success. But what good is speed if you're heading in the wrong direction? What good is efficiency without intention? Strategy without purpose is like a map without a destination. It may help you move, but you won't know where you're going or why it matters. The people who build lasting wealth and fulfillment don't start with spreadsheets. They start with a belief, a cause, a reason that gets them out of bed every morning that isn't just about profit, it's about impact. Because when your actions are tied to something greater than achievement, you become resilient. You stay focused. You endure hardship not just because you want success, but because you care about the thing you're building. Purpose creates clarity. It eliminates noise. It helps you say no to what's good so you can say yes to what's great. And that's not just poetic, it's practical. In business, in life, in relationships, purpose is the filter that keeps you grounded. It protects you from chasing every shiny object. It keeps you from comparing yourself to others. It reminds you that your journey isn't supposed to look like theirs, because your purpose isn't theirs, it's yours. The problem is we often confuse goals with purpose. But goals are outcomes. Purpose is identity. Goals can change, purpose doesn't. You might aim to make $1 million this year, or launch a new product, or reach a wider audience. Those are good goals. But why? Why does it matter? What's the deeper mission underneath it all? What is the impact you want to create beyond just results? When you lead with purpose, they feel it in the way you speak, they see it in the way you treat others, they hear it in the way you solve problems, not for your gain, but for their good. Purpose builds trust, because people can tell when you're in it for the mission versus when you're in it for yourself. And trust, not tactics, is what creates loyalty. It's what creates community. It's what builds movements. Some of the most strategic minds on the planet have failed, not because their plans were bad, but because their purpose was missing. Or worse, because their purpose was self-serving. That kind of ambition might win for a while. It might even scale, but it doesn't last. Because people don't rally behind profit, they rally behind meaning, behind something they believe in, something they want to be part of, something that makes them feel like their work, their energy, their time actually matters. You want to build something that endures? Start with why you exist, why you care, why the world needs what only you can offer. And then let that shape how you do what you do. Let it shape your systems, your decisions, your partnerships. When strategy follows purpose, it becomes stronger because it's aligned. It's not just smart. It's authentic. And authenticity is what creates consistency, which is what creates momentum, which is what creates legacy. But this kind of clarity doesn't happen by accident. It takes reflection. It takes honesty. It takes the willingness to look beyond the surface of success and ask yourself, what am I really doing this for? Not just what do I want to achieve, but who do I want to become in the process? What impact do I want to leave behind? What will my success mean to the people I care about? And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop chasing wealth for its own sake and you start chasing purpose, the wealth follows. Not always immediately, not always in the form you expected, but it comes. Because purpose attracts people, it attracts opportunity, it attracts trust. And trust is the soil in which all sustainable success is grown. You'll find that when you're anchored in purpose, the hard days don't break you. The setbacks don't shake you, they remind you. Because you're not doing this just for the win, you're doing this for the why. And when your why is strong enough, you'll figure out the how again and again. Through failure, through reinvention, through seasons of doubt, you'll still show up. Because purpose always outlasts pressure. Now, this doesn't mean you don't need strategy. Strategy, of course you do. Strategy is essential. Systems are essential. But they come after. Strategy answers how. Purpose answers why. And why should always go first. Otherwise, you risk building a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. So before you launch, before you scale, before you double down, pause. Ask yourself, what am I doing this for? What do I want people to feel when they experience my work? What will be different in the world because I showed up with courage, with clarity, with conviction? Because strategy will help you go far, but purpose will help you go deep. And depth is where fulfillment lives. It's where real connection happens. It's where the joy comes from, not just from winning, but from knowing your work matters, that it meant something, that you meant something. That's the kind of wealth no market crash can take from you. That's the kind of success no algorithm can manipulate. That's the kind of legacy that doesn't fade when the spotlight does. Start with purpose. Lead with it. Build from it.